Hello, welcome back to Mosaics. I'm your host, Holly Beach with the Idaho Office for Refugees. Today we have special guests from Global Talent and Global Talent Docs. Idaho is actually pioneering a new program. We had a bill passed last year, and this will allow for an alternative pathway for internationally trained physicians to get back to their work here in our medical fields here in the United States, helping to meet workforce needs and helping the whole community in general. So you two have been very vital in this effort, and I'm excited to learn more from you today. I'll start by introducing my colleague, Viktoriia Siedikova with Global Talent. Global Talent is a program that is with the Idaho Office for Refugees, so we get to see each other at work every day and work alongside each other. So welcome, Viktoriia. And we're also joined by Dr. Scott Smith, who has a long history in the Idaho medical field, wonderful expertise that you're bringing to these efforts. So welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Viktoriia, let's start with you. Could you share a little bit about yourself and your work?
Mm-hmm. So hello, everyone. Thank you, Holly, for inviting us. My name is Viktoriia Siedikova. I'm originally from Ukraine. My background is in HR management, and now I work as a career advisor at Global Talent. And Global Talent is an organization that helps highly educated refugees and immigrants to get back to their careers here in Idaho. We're receiving a lot of immigrants and refugees who are highly educated, but they're facing a lot of barriers towards employment, such as lack of familiarity with U.S. work culture. They're facing barriers such as licensing also, and they're lacking the professional network here. So we're helping them to overcome those barriers.
That's great. I think this is one of my favorite programs. It started over 10 years ago now.
Yes,
and it's
in 2014.
It's just such a cool example of a win-win when someone comes with a dream and the skills to do that dream, but there's just some systemic things in their way. To have a team and an advisor come alongside them and kind of be a guidepost in that section of their journey, I think is really beautiful.
It's very important to have someone walk with you.
Yeah. And Dr. Smith, you always tell me to call you Scott, but
I tell everybody that. Nobody ever does it.
Scott, share a bit about your career background and how you got involved with Global Talent Docs, which is the cohort that you lead with Global Talent.
Yeah, thank you. So it's kind of serendipitous. I retired in 2019, which was early in the Global Talent experiences. And what they had figured out by then was that for doctors, they needed something more, because when you're retraining an engineer or a nurse or a pharmacist, it seemed like they were pretty successful at getting them into employment. But the doctors had all of these requirements and all these barriers. And so I had been a residency director and within the residency program for like 23 years. In an internal medicine residency. And I'd also written questions for the national boards for 8 years. So the two things that were barriers to them, big barriers to them, I was familiar with, and just ran into a couple of brothers that were from Iraq at the time, lamenting. We were at some kind of function at the Steckel Sky Center, and it was like a medical liaison thing or something. And we sat next to each other, and the rest is history. They got me involved, and I've been doing that now since 2019. So 42 individuals, 21 countries, and we have 7 in practice and 3 more going into or in residency now. So we've been really successful, I think.
Yeah, that's so cool, especially when you know that Idaho has a shortage.
Yeah, we... a few years ago, we became 50th out of 50 in doctors per capita. And when you look at the national data, 97% of Idaho is considered federally underserved for healthcare. So we really have a problem. And we knew this 10 or 15 years ago. We started to increase training class sizes to respond to that, but the state is growing faster than we can do that. So, so it really we have these resources and we need to start using them.
And I know that I've had friends and family members, go into healthcare, and just seeing how much work they need to do to not only study, but then what comes after you graduate is the competitive process to get into a residency.
Yeah.
So that you can get. I've seen numbers on how many people are applying for one residency seat. So it seems like a very competitive process?
It is. Starting just a couple of years ago, we had more U.S. graduates from MD or DO schools than we had residency slots in the nation.
Yeah.
So, it's for a person that's coming from an international background, they're at a disadvantage because they're already behind.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was residency director, we were using, we would get 10 interns a year to staff our programs. And for those 10 interns, we would usually have about 120 interviews. And for those 120 interviews, we'd usually have 1,200 applicants.
Oh, my goodness.
So it was a 100-to-1 ratio of applying and then getting an interview and getting into that program.
Yes. And meanwhile, you have people who are trained and wanting to work in the healthcare field. We have spots that need to be filled.
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of part of the inspiration. Scott, you worked a lot on this bill. Can you remind me what number it was? House Bill?
House Bill 542.
542.
Yeah.
And that passed last year. And can you explain the goal of that bill, what problem it hopes to solve?
So most of the residency slots in the nation are funded by Medicare. And because it's an expensive process to, get the people, pay them their salary, buy their malpractice, buy them all computers, whatever they're doing, And so Medicare has for a long time supported that, and most of the residency structure is now dependent on that. Well, the Medicare bills were capped in the late 90s. I think it was 1997. At a certain amount. Well, obviously the country has grown a lot since then, and we've needed more doctors, but we can't get more Medicare residency slots. So that's the long and short of it, is that these IMGs, international medical graduates, it's kind of a shortcut we'll use probably.
I've also seen ITPs, internationally trained physicians. Is that kinda...
It depends on who you're talking
okay.
to. Yeah. So these folks, like I say, they're up against the wall. There's two barriers. One is they have to pass the boards, and that's a big test. But then the bigger barrier, I think, is getting into a residency, because it's such a competitive thing like we just talked about.
And it's even for folks that already did maybe a
right.
residency in their home country.
Most of these people in our bill, they have to have done some formal training after medical school and then be in practice in their home country before they could get considered. And then our bill was really, I would say the easiest way to understand it is it's an apprenticeship instead of a residency. Mm-hmm. It's the people that we're bringing into it, at least initially, they have all had residents and medical students. They're familiar with the supervision process and the competency measurement they need to do and so forth. So it's going to be very similar to a residency. It just won't have the certification at a national level that a residency would have. So anyway, that was what the bill was designed to do, is to avoid one of these barriers for people that were highly trained and, good candidates, had already been through a residency somewhere else, had been practicing, and then came here and have somehow assimilated into the U.S. system. So they've spent some time in the medical field here in one way or another.
Maybe in a role that is still in healthcare, but not quite at the level that they were practicing
Right. So a typical
before.
thing might be translator.
Okay.
Or a medical assistant in a clinic office, not doing primary care practitioner, but they're around that, and those are the kind of. Some of them would go into the laboratory, or some of them would run research projects for a big center. But
and primary care physicians is what this program is aimed at training. Correct? They would go into primary care in Idaho.
We are favoring primary care, but we're not requiring a primary care interest. Okay. So there's an occasional person that we're considering that is in a specialty that we also need.
Yeah.
And if we can facilitate that with the same structure, basically, we're going to try that.
Okay.
All of that in our pilot. We have hopeful candidates that we're just about signed on the dotted line with. So
this is a new project. And Viktoriia, can you share how Global Talent is involved in the project, what your role is, and any partners that you're working with to make sure this is a success?
Yeah, so Global Talent recently received a grant from World Education Services Company. And this grant is actually targeted towards implementing this new licensing pathway. and I'm leading this initiative from Global Talent. I'm coordinating this project. So our goal is to create a cohort of internationally trained physicians. Hopefully, we're gonna have like 5 to 7 people in a cohort, and we're hoping to place at least 1 to 2 people into actual apprenticeship. And our project is considered as demonstration project because I think 22 states, right?
Yeah,
There are
now
22 states who are interested in implementing this law, similar to this one, or they've already passed the bill. So our project will be like a demonstration for them. So we will lead those people through this process. And at the end, I will write kind of a guide for those other states to show that that is possible and what is the process.
It's so cool to see Idaho leading in this way. I was just joking with you guys before this that a lot of times when Idaho makes national headlines, it's not for the best stories. So I love to see innovation that could actually help guide the way for other states to do things. That's a win-win-win for these physicians that want to get back to their dream career, for a population that really needs more access to medical care, and for an industry that has workforce shortages. It just all comes together. I see it as a cool solution. And at least as we're starting to explore, like Scott mentioned, that you're exploring where this could go, maybe what some of the hiccups might be or things that need to be changed down the road. But it's a start to see where we can strengthen it for everybody.
Yeah, I'm really proud to lead this project, and I feel like we're going to address the need. Especially, it's mostly targeted towards rural areas. They're mostly underserved. So it's a win-win for addressing the need in rural areas in Idaho, and also addressing the need in other states. I think it's going to be successful.
And you're in a good position to be working with people trying to get back to their field in a new country because you had to do it yourself. Can you share a little bit about what that was like for you?
So I'm also an immigrant, and I've been at the place of my job seekers. I know how complicated is that to search for jobs, being ghosted after interviews, not hearing callbacks. And I'm so happy that now I have more knowledge on how to apply for jobs, how to tailor your resume, how to do interviews, and I'm happy to share it with my job seekers. I really like working with them one-on-one and seeing their improvement. Most of the time, I'm seeing how refugees, when they're coming here, their self-esteem is affected because they were at the very high positions back to their countries. And here they're starting with Uber, DoorDash, Amazon, and they're feeling very frustrated. And once they're placed into jobs, they're feeling very successful. They're feeling needed already again. And it's so fulfilling. It's so meaningful to me. I have a story of one of my job seekers. He was a lawyer back to his country. And when he came here, we started working with him. And I sent him several job postings, encouraging him to apply. And he said, "No, Viktoriia, these jobs they're too high for me. I will not be able to do that." And I insisted for him to apply, and we applied together. And when he got an interview, he was shocked. He was like, "No way, I'm so nervous."
Yeah.
He was extremely nervous. We were preparing for the interview, and eventually he got that job offer.
Wow.
And now he works at a position like his dream job, and he's very successful. So I'm so proud of that. And we have lots of stories like that.
And it's so cool because I was just looking at the Bureau of Labor Statistics data, and there are more job openings in Idaho than there are people looking for jobs. So to have, it's just helping everybody to have more people with, this international experience and these skills to be able to come and contribute to what they want to do as well.
Yeah, especially when they already have high degree, they're already having a lot of experience back in their country. They just need to be placed here and keep working on what they were doing back at home.
It's really impressive. I often try to put myself in their shoes. I've been trying to learn Spanish forever, and it's still pretty rudimentary, but I just picture myself, what if I moved to a Spanish-speaking country, then all of a sudden I have to write my cover letter in Spanish, or I have to do an interview in Spanish, and I can just picture the way my brain would freeze. Like the things I would want to say and share would be right here, but I don't know and so I imagine people have to, and I don't know if you had to face that too, like getting over the fear of, will I find the right words, or will it come across what I want to communicate? And even the way we operate within the work culture, in our office, we have people from all over the world, and you can see the different cultures and the different ways people prefer to interact. Some people are very forward with their feedback. Some people won't say it. It'll be more implicit. And so just different ways of operating and doing things really varies. And so you help it sounds like Global Talent also helps the job seekers and the employers once they get placed to maybe understand culturally some of the differerences that might be coming up.
Yes, we have employer engagement coordinator, my colleague, who helps them after placement. So they're meeting for like 1-hour consultations, and she coaches them on U.S. work culture because, really cultures can be extremely different from one another, and she just tells them how to behave at their new job. She can also explain them benefits because it's very different. Everything is new for them. So I think it's also a really helpful resource for them.
Yeah, I supervise someone from a refugee background who's a little bit newer to Idaho. And when it came time to do like filling out our insurance, I tried to guide him, but I had to be honest with him. I'm like, this is always kind of confusing for me to know which is the right one to pick, which plan is best for me, all the ins and outs. So I said, welcome to our healthcare system. It is confusing. You don't always know what's covered and by whom. And so all those little things. And when you first started working in the U.S., were there anything about workplace culture that stuck out to you as, oh, that's different from what I'm used to?
Yeah, mostly I can say I was struggling so much with benefits. When applying for these benefits and figuring it out, it took me so much time and so much consultations with my colleagues to figure it out because it was really complicated. Yeah. And also the work culture that here, it's a bit different from our country because our country is mostly hierarchical. But here you feel mostly at the same level with your supervisor. Even I cannot say that you're friends, but you're mostly more like friends.
Maybe more collaborative.
Yes, more collaborative. And it's very different from my country.
Oh, okay.
That's what I faced here. And actually, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that here.
It is different, though. It's hard to get used to. I have to tell a story on Viktoriia.
Yes, please do. she's like, what story?
So she's bringing in her experience of going through this process. And we recently had a meeting where we were sifting through all the national potential applicants for this new program. And, we had to narrow it down to a couple, 3, 4, 5 top candidates from a bunch. And every one of them would have some little flaw here. And Viktoriia would say, well, we don't know why maybe they had a bad day when they took it. We should really get more information. And I turned to her boss and I said, okay, you need to hit her shoulder once a day to get her toughened up so she can say no to some people.
Yeah, because I'm usually advocating for my job seekers. And
well, you
that's
should
why,
be, and that's where your allegiance is you were going through and went through this process, and you know what it's like for them. You want to say yes to everybody.
Oh, I feel that too. When I applied for my first job, it was to be a reporter at a newspaper. And so you better have impeccable, I can't even talk. You better have impeccable grammar in your cover letter, right?
Yeah.
So I read it over and over and over again to make sure there were no typos, no errors. And the first thing, the hiring manager, I sit down for my interview. I'm like 21. I'm so nervous. And she sits across from me and she circles a typo in red ink. Her first thing she says to me, she circles a typo in red ink. She's like, so how's your accuracy? I just like, oh no. But she gave me a chance. So I agree with Viktoriia. You can't always write someone off for a mistake.
Yeah. No. You have to have some sort of way of choosing.
Yeah. It's cool to see the interest already in the program because it's brand new. It's a pilot program and you've already gotten applicants from
all over, actually from outside the United States too, which we can't really.
It's a huge interest. I received like 60 plus applicants who were interested, who were asking me about it. And we even received applicants from outside of the US. So I had applicants from Egypt, from United Kingdom, from Saudi Arabia, like all over the world. People are willing to come here for this program, and it was really impressive because this project there, it feels small because we're creating very small cohort, but that amount of applicants, it feels huge.
Yeah, it shows that there's interest here. There's a longer runway to build upon as you go forward.
Yeah, we thought that we would be mainly selecting from our cohort of global talent docs, but many of them were pretty leery about the fact that this was not going to lead to the ability to take the boards for family medicine or internal medicine at this point. We're working on that.
Okay.
And then that would give them restrictions down the road. And they said, nope, I'll take my chances and try and get into a ACGME residency and we'll go from there. So
yeah, so people who do complete the apprenticeship, the alternative pathway to residency, what are their career options after that?
So their career options at this point that are guaranteed if we don't get anything else done are to do the 3 years in the apprenticeship where they have a provisional license. And then at the end of that, if the sponsoring institution and the preceptor say, yeah, they did a fine job, then they get a full unrestricted license in Idaho. It's not transferable like medical licenses usually are to any other state. And it doesn't allow you generally for many systems to work in the hospital. You have to be outpatient. So what these people would be doing is outpatient primary care without hospitalization. And they would need partners that would take care of people that had to be hospitalized.
I see. Okay.
But to try and make it better, we're going to work on that.
Yeah. And while they're in the apprenticeship, I imagine they're getting paid for that work.
Yeah, they'll get paid roughly at the level of an intern.
Okay. And who's covering that cost?
The sponsoring institution needs to cover that.
So whatever hospital they're working at.
It's a clinic, like a large clinic system or a hospital typically.
Okay.
And the reason they're going to do it, so, a place like St. Luke's, great big healthcare system, they're constantly losing people and recruiting and whatnot. And it's a big cost to them to do that stuff, to retrain the next batch and stuff. But you might bring, let's say that, if you have a physician in primary care leaving, and that's a hard thing to find, you might bring in 7, 8, 9 candidates where you're paying the plane flights and dinners out and hotel bills and stuff to bring them in and show them the thing. You might have to go through quite a few, and the total cost is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars for the hospital. So if they get a 3-year chance to look at somebody, and that somebody gets a 3-year chance to look at them, and they know the system at the end of it, it's like, why not just stay here and work? So it's going to be a great recruiting tool, I think. And making, we need the first few in the cohort to go through to make that case. Right now it's a theory, and some of the hospitals are ready to jump on that and some aren't. But
when do you hope to place your first set of people in the apprenticeship?
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're hoping to start this fall, so we're now doing actively recruiting.
Okay.
Next week we're having interview with 5 more candidates. And by this fall, we're going to have the set of candidates. We're going to create a cohort, and then we'll start working with them on employment.
So Viktoriia is kind of handling the candidate side of things. I'm trying to handle the sponsoring institution side of things because I have connections still from my 23 years in residency. So
it's a good team right there.
Yeah, but it's hard, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
There's always that last 10% that's like, well, yeah, but what if? What about this?
Mm-hmm. It's hard to create and launch something and see it through and have the unknowns and
this has more unknowns than
existent
usual.
yet.
Yeah. Because there's not another state yet that you can look at.
No, there's 3 of us in this initial WES grant.
It's 2 of us.
2, sorry, right.
Yeah,
Maine,
so it's
Maine,
Idaho
right?
and Massachusetts.
Okay, I can never. It was
one
like
of the M
Michigan.
states.
Well, Michigan, Maine, Massachusetts, all were in these 22 that are in the process. So it's Massachusetts and us. And they're completely different. Great big program compared to ours. They're going to have a much larger cohort, different kinds of issues for them than we will have. So it's a good, for WES, it's great because they're going to get some experience from the top and the bottom end as far as size.
As far as, how large the program is. That's great. Scott, you've worked with doctors now for several years who are trying to get back to their careers in the U.S. What are some of the strengths that you see in these internationally trained graduates, the medical graduates?
They're just incredibly perseverant. First of all, to a person almost, they're just incredibly bright too. You know, they couldn't have gotten this far in the whole process if they weren't. But they just keep going and going and going, and they miss out on this, then they move a little different direction and go that way, you know. And so I see that. One of the things that I have to talk them into, and that is that during your interview, if you're lucky enough to get some interviews and stuff, don't be shy about explaining your background and how it's different than the other applicants they're going to see. Because these people, almost to a person, have come from very under-resourced healthcare systems. You know, they didn't have some problem and get a CT scan real easily kind of thing. And so they have learned to deal with doing a very good history and physical, a few little tests and x-rays, and make a hypothesis and go forward with a diagnosis and watch closely to see if that's working. And that's an old skill that most current trainees in the U.S. don't have. You know, they're just so used to relying on the technology around them so much. So that's one of the things that they bring to it. Also, the cultural awareness to just stretch. I mean, they can give talks, noon conferences to the whole hospital about how the cultural differences were a barrier to them and probably are to the same patients that, that are coming up. So,
yeah, that ability to relate to different patients.
And I don't remember, but our folks are speaking 8, 10, 12 different languages, you know.
Or even more, yeah.
Yeah. From the GT docs that we have a small number of, we've got, you know, I can remember they're speaking Pashto, Dar, different things from different places that we have immigrants from. Mm-hmm. And, you know, certainly we've got a lot of Spanish-speaking trainees, Arabic-speaking trainees. Some of the stories, here's a good story about the persistence. So we have a guy that's practicing now in the healthcare system in Boise. When I first met him, he was a translator, and he was working with my wife, who was a pediatrician, on this little girl that was really brittle diabetic, and the mother had never gone through any school. So she couldn't read or write in her own language, much less English. Mm-hmm. She didn't understand numbers, and she had to run the insulin, right? So this poor kid was getting admitted to the hospital all the time. Well, he's telling my wife that, you know, he was a doctor and and he's trying to get, but he doesn't know how to get here. Oh, my husband's going to just start doing this, so you need to meet him. And he was the first guy I worked with.
Wow.
And his story was that he was in Somalia in the middle of war. He was smart enough to get good grades in his high school or secondary. And then he wanted to go to medical school, but he had to go to Jordan to do that. And he had to learn Arabic to go through medical school. And then he gets through that and he wants to come to the United States. Now he has to learn English on top of that. And he just kept hammering away. And and the first sets of test scores that he took were like, there are U.S. students that would kill for those test scores. He's just so bright. And over time, I got to know him better. And I said, and his brother is here also. I said, what is it that you I know you really seem to like this. What is it you like about it? And he says, we can go to sleep at night and there's no bombs and guns and we're not in a war. It's so different than what we grew up in. Mm. So you see all that and you think, this is probably what my grandparents or great-grandparents went through to get out of whatever mess they were in and come to the U.S., and it's still going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so cool that he still gets to do what he loves to do, too, because I've talked to we had Samson on last time.
Yeah.
Who he immigrated from Nigeria, I think, as a surgeon.
Yep.
And now is practicing here locally, I believe.
He just got into residency.
Oh, my gosh. Good job.
So
that's
he's
cool.
like 2 or 3 months into his internship.
Wow. Good for him. But
he's doing well.
I just remember on the last episode that we had Global Talent Docs on, which I think now was a year and a half ago.
November 23, I think.
And he was just sharing, like, it's just something I feel called to do. Yeah. And so I will do what it takes because I love this and it's a lot of hard work, but it's what I want to be doing with my life. And so you probably see that a lot, just like people that feel a sense of this is what I should be doing.
Yeah, every once in a while you run into the frustration that this isn't going to work. So one of our problems in Idaho is that we only have 4 different residencies to choose from: pediatrics, psychiatry, internal medicine, and family medicine. Mm-hmm. We don't have a surgical residency of any kind at this point. We have affiliates that do, but if they got assigned to Idaho as a refugee, and their choice is stay here the requisite amount of time and then move somewhere, or think of something else,
Yeah.
And so that part's hard, because if, like Samson came as a surgeon and he easily made the transition into, he really got interested in mental health for a while. So that's completely like anti-surgery, it seems like. And he put those together for family medicine, and that's the residency he's doing. Okay. So he says, I can do all of that. So
I noticed probably other people saw in the news too, this legislative session, a lot about Idaho and our relationship with WWAMI and our the medical school in Washington and how many residency slots Idaho has there. Did that end up changing? Do we still have our same number of residency slots?
We have the same number of residency slots, and the WWAMI connection was not changed hardly at all.
Okay.
In the end. That doesn't mean it's not going to change this next session, because the whole group is still threatening that.
Okay.
And this is, in my mind, this is purely political. This is the east of the state and Utah connections to the University of Utah versus the western part of the state and WWAMI and the connections to the University of Washington.
Okay.
And it really doesn't have to do with whether one's better than the other, or, we would love to have more residents. So if we could do this without cutting out WWAMI slots and stuff. I mean, one of the problems in Idaho is that, we became part of WWAMI almost 50 years ago. I was in one of the second WWAMI classes. That's where I met my wife, actually. And so once we had that up and going smoothly, everybody, I think, in the back of their mind said, okay, problem solved. We'll have all the doctors we need. Well, you have to go from medical school to residency training, and we didn't put any resources into expanding residency training in these other states. And so Ted Epperly, he and I were also in this same medical school class, he and I worked hard maybe 2017 or a little before that to increase the number of residents and fellows in the state, because that's where we really had a constriction.
Yeah.
And we managed to increase it by 84%, the number of residents we were training.
Wow.
Just added new residency, sub-residencies and the existing ones, adding new seats to the residencies, go from 10 to 12 or whatever. And then in the same process, we dropped back to being the 50th out of 50, because the influx of population is higher than the increase in the number of people we could create. And this all comes back to that Medicare problem as far as pretty much the only big funding source for residency training.
Okay. Wow, what a great effort, though, to increase it by that many.
Yeah,
spots.
no, we did a good job, and it worked for a little while, and then we were behind again. So I think, when we're in those kinds of situations and we're sitting around with unused, untapped resources that are perfectly adequate. In the original 10, 15 years ago, the big concerns for people like the state boards of medicine and stuff were quality versus fairness to the trainees, and quality trumped everything. Like, okay, well, we know that if we make them do all of the board tests and do residency, they come out with high quality. So we'll just make them do all that again, even though they've done all that.
Yeah.
And now,
and I can see the public having that concern too, of like,
sure,
you don't want shortcuts for your doctor, right? When they're getting trained.
No, and that's why I think it's really important to show that there's an equality between what training they had, and there's this ramp-up period of an apprenticeship now, where the culture of medicine in the United States that's so different, they're exposed to it, they're precepted through that, and very similar to what they would do in a residency. And then at the end of that, taking a test that says your knowledge base is equivalent, basically.
Yeah. That seems like a good solution too, especially I'm thinking, what if you're, born and raised in Idaho, then there are this pathway creates less competition for the residency spot that you might be trying to get to.
No, exactly. And I did, when all this whammy stuff was going on in the legislature, I wrote a letter to the State Board of Medicine and the governor and just said, you need to be aware of what whammy has been doing, because it's way more experienced at training people in these 5 states to practice primary care in these 5 states. I'm a great example. I started out as a, quote, Washington whammy. So my undergraduate medical school classes were in Washington State. But I started doing rotations in Pocatello and then many of them in Boise, and I fell in love with Idaho. Mm-hmm. I said, I'm an Idaho native, so it was natural. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of people that you're bringing into this system that are going to stick around and do this stuff. Yeah. And you need to realize that at this point, Utah is getting better at that, but they haven't got that same kind of connection yet.
Okay. Viktoriia, what are you looking forward to as this new cohort starts?
I'm excited to actually help doctors who are trying their best to get into residency. And this alternative pathway, I think, will make it easier for them. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm really excited to train them, to prepare them for this alternative pathway, and to actually place them into positions into residency, not a residency, apprenticeship. Mm-hmm. And also now I'm working on competency-based supervision guide, which will help mentors to adjust their program, because we don't want our internationally trained physicians to go over residency here again, because they've been already through it in their country. We just want to adjust it so they learn U.S. specifics. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's I think it's very important.
And is that kind of the call to action at this point, is if you're in a sponsoring, if you work in a hospital that could be, or a clinic that could be a sponsoring institution, you want to connect with more in Idaho, right? With more institutions like that?
Yeah, mm-hmm. We want to, ideally we'd love some of the smaller regional hospitals, because that's the people that have the most need in terms of primary care. Mm-hmm. So, there are a couple of places that we're looking at in up north and in Moscow and stuff that are interested, and we just need to get a little further along. Now, most of these places have had some experience doing medical education training, either with students or residents in their hospitals already. And so we're kind of trying to pick the winners, right? The people that are a little further ahead, so that when we go to the next round to a place that hasn't had medical students or residents, we've cleaned up the competency-based manual and how to measure these people and, what kind of quarterly evals should you be doing and talking to them and giving them feedback and that kind of stuff. These people that we're starting with probably have already done a lot of that.
Yeah. Well, it's an amazing partnership. Excited to see how it continues to progress. I mean, even since we last spoke a year and a half ago, you've done so much and accomplished so much. And so we really appreciate, I know, Scott, that you, I think you volunteered to do all this with your time. And
I get some really good food once in a while, though.
It's just amazing that you have this rich career and that you're still finding ways for that knowledge that you built to make a difference for other people. So
yeah, it's doctors don't retire easily. So, so this is a way to use what I already knew, but sleep in the mornings and I don't have to get paid and make a living out of it. I just
Viktoriia doesn't schedule the 8 a.m. meetings with you?
No, not very often, no.
Good job.
I just appreciate your help so much.
Well, I appreciate doing it, as you can tell.
Yes. Well, thank you. Is there anything that you both would like to add as we wrap up?
One thing I would say is, for the patients that are hearing this podcast, they should agitate with their representatives of government, the senators, the representatives in your area and stuff, to continue to support these programs, because we're going to do nothing but fall further behind if we're not careful.
Yeah. Thank you, Scott.
So we could use their help more than money. We could use their advocacy.
The voice, that we care about Idaho having
and especially
spots.
Anybody that's the patient of one of these first, people that are out there that really likes them, let the powers that be know that they're well trained and they're doing a good job, and don't worry about this.
Yeah, that's great.
And I would like to add for those who is internationally trained physicians and they're at the very beginning of their pathway, I would just encourage them not to give up, because I know this pathway, like the getting back to being a doctor here, is extremely complicated. I know that. But if you're not giving up, you can do it for sure. And it just takes so much perseverance and hard work, but it's worth it at the end, for sure. So I'm just encouraging them not to give up and keep studying, keep applying to residencies.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. I know the work that you do is really meaningful for people. I know I got to go to a Global Talent panel last week, and alumni of the Global Talent program got to share, and it was very cool. And you can see there's this point I think most people hit. I think anyone in their career, regardless if you're an immigrant or not, hits this point of discouragement. Mm-hmm. But I think for them, there's just so many more things to overcome. Accent. Is my accent going to keep me from getting a job? Yes. Are people going to judge me based on my accent? I try so hard not to have one, but I do. Mm-hmm. Or, they express like the confidence in who I am. I almost felt it go away here. Like maybe I was less than, maybe I wasn't as smart as everybody else. Just this doubt and just hearing through that, like, wow, there's really a lot, not only with the paperwork and the licensures, mm-hmm. but with your own self-esteem and confidence that I think you have to go through that. Mm-hmm. There's no way over it. There's no way around it. I think that's one of those things you go through and you grow from it. And I think you two both are with people in those moments. So at least they're not alone as they face those feelings.
That's for sure. I want them to know that they're really needed, they're valued, and they're educated enough, they're smart enough, so they can do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thank you both. I'm excited to continue to get updates, and maybe someday we'll get to have a doctor on who went through the process, and we can learn more from them.
Yeah. We're hoping so.
Yeah, we're working hard on that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And if anyone has more questions, you can email mosaics@idahorefugees.org, and I'll get you connected to the right place. And Viktoriia, can you remind me Global Talent's website, Global Talent or Glow Talent? Yeah, Glow, GLO talent.org, I think. But that's also a great place. Even if you're not in the medical field, but you're looking for, if you're college educated or have a career background in another country and you're looking to get back to your career here in Idaho, check out Global Talent. They do have great resources and support. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the conversation. For more information on how to be involved with refugee resettlement, please visit idahorefugees.org. Mosaics is produced by the Idaho Office for Refugees with grant support from the M.J. Murdoch Charitable Trust. Music by the Afrosonics. Production in partnership with SB Studios.